Hey everybody, what is up? Welcome back to Final Trade. I feel kind of silly making this video, but I thought there are some kind of important points to talk about here. Yeah, Earthbind. It's in a bubble. Oh boy, is it in a bubble. So I guess WotC says we are never going to reprint this, despite reprinting other things. She's just too much to look at, I guess. I don't know. Um, I went through all of my unlimited and revised cards, and I had 15 revised copies of this. I didn't have any unlimited. But the really funny part is, if we look through here it is. I think it's this one. That is the worst condition one I have. See, a little bit of mold spots, and it's got some more wear on the back, some chips. But my point here is, this is a garbage card. Nobody ever played this card, and so it's funny to look through my 15 copies and see they're all. I mean, some of them are, a couple of them are pack fresh. They're all very near minty to light play. And I bet this is kind of the realization everyone is having. I went out on TCG Player this morning. There were over 250 near mint copies available, starting around the $5 range. I went to completed sales on eBay. The revised version had recently completed sales, either singles or four sets, for $3, $4, $4.50 range, and unlimited copies were in the anywhere from $15 to $35 for good looking copies of this card. Just because WotC has signaled we will never reprint this again. So I guess it's like suddenly it is reserved list, but there are tons of copies of this card, and it's a garbage card. It's like Dwarven Pony. Dwarven Pony is a reserve list card, but it's a garbage card, so nobody cares about it. It's worth a couple bucks. Here's the thing. A couple days ago on the community tab, I posted a link to an old RMTG finance thread about early Magic print run sizes. And in it, it said that the revised print run may have been 150 million cards. It may have been 200 million cards, or 250 or 300 million, just depending on various statements that people somewhat in the know have made over time. So anywhere from 150 to 300 million cards for revised. Okay. So let's say that booster packs were a figment of our imagination. Actually, all WotC printed was starter decks so that we have as many land as possible sitting in place of commons. So you bought a starter deck, it was 60 cards, 45 of them were common slot. And the way it worked back then is that land could get into a common slot. It wasn't like the later starter decks in like 97 onwards, where you would just have about 22 lands and they were at one spot in the deck. In these early days, they would be in the common slots. And so the number I found was 38.02% of the time, a land would sit there in place of a common. And there were 75 commons in the set. So if we take 150 million cards, we divide by 60 to get the number of decks, we multiply by 45 to get the number of commons, and then we multiply by 61.98 to get the number of commons that are not replaced by lands. That will give us the total number of revised commons printed, and then we divide by 75. We'll just go ahead and assume that all commons were equally printed. And what do we get? 930,000 copies of revised Earthbind. Yes, 930,000 copies. And remember, we've made several assumptions here. We've taken that 150 million total card count for revised, which is the lowest number. It may have been 300 million according to statements that we have at least a little bit of faith in. And we've assumed that all that was printed was starter decks so that we get as many lands as possible overriding copies of Earthbind. And so in reality, maybe we double it to that 300 million count and we add a little more. And so we might say there could be as many as, 2 million copies of revised Earthbind in the wild. And then you have to ask yourself, well, how many don't exist anymore? How many got thrown away by angry parents who thought magic was satanic, and how many were lost in floods and lost in house fires and everything else over the years? I don't know, 5%? Maybe we would say 10%. I would think 20% is too high, but maybe 10% is a good number we could agree on. So that means there's anywhere from, say, 800,000 to 1.75 million copies of these still out there in the wild. And it's a garbage card, and nobody ever cared about it. Nobody ever played it. That's why all your copies are still in really good condition. So if we think about, but Craig, what about the unlimited printing? I mean, unlimited printing was a lot smaller than the revised printing. Okay. The number that we think is pretty good for the size of the unlimited printing is a mere 40 million cards instead of 150 million to 300 million. So if we go with that 40 million number and we do all the same calculations, we make the same silly assumption that there were no booster packs. It was all starter decks. So the most basic lands as possible get in the way of printing more commons. We still come to 250,000 copies of the unlimited version of Earthbind. 250,000 copies. Boy, this is a giant bubble, and it's going to pop. There are just too many of these cards in existence. They're not worth anything. They're not good. Nobody has a sentimental connection to this card. Nobody thinks back and thinks, Earthbind. I remember putting 4 copies of that in every deck I made back in high school. People don't say that about this, like they might cards like Dark Ritual or Counterspell or Lightning Bolt were great staples of the early era of Magic. Nobody says that about this. So, what's my advice? If you have any copies of this, especially unlimited, go throw those things up on eBay today. Throw them up for, I don't know, $19 so you can ship them in an eBay standard envelope. Get rid of every one of them you can, and, in a few months, this bubble will pop. The prices will come way back down. And if you care at all, you could repurchase the copies off of TCG Player at much lower prices. But this is just some crazy instance where, and I hate to say it, but essentially Timmies think they're going to get rich quick off of a garbage card that cost a couple dollars. And the reality is that's not how you get rich quick. On the long timeline, you get rich by having disciplined investing in good assets and not going out and doing silly things like buying up tons of copies of this revised for $3, $4, $5 each, unlimited for $15, $25, $35 each. That's not how you're going to get rich. You're probably not even going to just make a little bit of extra money. You'll miss out on that too. So yeah, I'm actually considering just throwing all 15 of these together in a lot, throwing them up on eBay and getting rid of them. If I could get, 40, $45, I would probably do that. And then sometime in the future, I would just go buy 10 copies back from TCG Player just to have in my collection. So let me know what you think, guys. If you've already managed to unload yours, let me know. I'd get a chuckle out of that. So otherwise, like, comment, share, and subscribe. Join me on Final Trade. Thanks a lot, everyone.